Impact segment tonight, a private meeting starring Senator Ted Cruz. It was held in the Capitol building and attended by some of his fellow Republican senators. Reports say Cruz was under some kind of fire and the meeting was heated. Joining us now from Washington, Senator Ron Johnson, who was at that meeting. So first of all, I want to tell the audience there's some privacy issues in play. We're not going to ask you to violate any confidences, but set the scene. Who was at the meeting? Why was it called?
Well, first of all, Bill, this is our standard Wednesday steering committee lunch, and I'd say most Republican senators were in attendance. I mean, generally we have 35 to 45 senators at those lunches, and you know, one of the things I do want to correct the record, because I've seen this repeatedly in some of these lunches, it is a violation to be talking about specifics, but also we don't yell at each other. I mean, there are lively debates, there's good discussion, sometimes pointed questions, but it's all within the bounds of collegiality, and last week's lunch, I don't think was any different than that.
Okay, but you had Ted Cruz as the focus of attention in this lunch, so therefore, everybody wants to know about it. And let's be honest, Senator, there are some beefs against Senator Cruz, and I assume they were brought up at that luncheon.
How I describe it is a full discussion of the whole defund strategy, where we stand today, you know, as this thing has been rolled out. And you know, from my standpoint, Bill, I mean, I didn't support the strategy. We are 100% united as Republicans to repeal, to defund, to limit the damage of Obamacare. But the strategy is what we're questioning. And so we were asking, so where do we proceed from here? And from my standpoint, there are certainly some fatal flaws in the strategy. First and foremost, you have to pass a bill to defund Obamacare. In order to do that, you actually have to initially get 5 Democrat senators to vote with us. And so we certainly were asking questions like, what's the strategy to get 5 Democrat senators to join us in that effort? And by the way, even if you pass it through the Senate, President Obama's going to have to sign it. If he doesn't sign it, then we have to override his veto. Now you need 21 senators, well, I think about 58 House Democrats. So again, we're trying to get a handle on how do you actually defund this thing?
Okay, but I had Senator Cruz on the fact earlier this week. He knows that. He knows he's not going to get the Senate to go along with abolishing Obamacare. He knows that President Obama is going to veto any attempt to defund it or even to change it a little bit as it stands now. But the senator's point of view is, I have to stand on principle. I was elected to oppose this legislation, and what I'm doing is bringing the issue to the fore. Now everybody knows about it, so I'm going to continue on this line even if I don't win. And was that an object of discussion?
Well, Bill, you know, I was in business for 31 years. I've done a lot of strategic planning. It always starts with recognizing the reality of the situation, then set yourself achievable goals. And as much as you know, listen, Bill, this is why I ran. I wanted to be the vote to repeal Obamacare, but you have to set yourself achievable goals. And that's just the problem with this effort is, you know, I appreciate the passion. I appreciate any effort that highlights how harmful Obamacare is going to be. But this strategy has really, unfortunately, divided us. It's been destructive from that standpoint. And so it's not helpful to achieving that final goal of being able to paint a picture for the American public of how harmful Obamacare is going to be to our health care system.
But let me challenge you there. Let me challenge you there for a moment. Sure. If Cruz didn't do what he did, which was the filibuster and all of that, I submit to you, Senator, that millions of Americans wouldn't know what we were talking about right now. So that he brought the passion against the new law to the fore.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Bill. I appreciate that effort of
now you have
to
advance it, and you have to try to get a strategy. But there isn't any strategy because, in the end, President Obama is not going to make any changes to this law, and he has the power. So it's basically, you know, you're at the Alamo. You guys are at the Alamo. You know, you're going to get killed. It's a matter of when.
Part of the problems we have in trying to turn public opinion against this law is President Obama very cleverly, very cynically delayed implementation until after his election. Of course, now he's delaying implementation until after 2014, so the Americans really don't recognize or feel the pain of Obamacare. So it's very challenging for us. But you know, one of the things I'd like to point out is I really want the American people to believe what their eyes are telling them. Look at the dysfunction over the last 5 years. The debt
the polls say you're right. They don't want it. Most they don't want it, but they also don't want the government to be shut down.
Right.
See, and now that's where we are.
And I don't want the government shut down either. The federal government does enough harm to our economy, but really, Americans, watch what's happening over the next couple of days, weeks, months, and ask yourself a question. Do you want this federal government, this incredibly dysfunctional entity, taking over more control of your lives, growing, increasing its influence over our healthcare system. I think it's a really bad idea, and I think that's really the fundamental issue facing America today. Do you want to continue to grow government, or do you really want the private sector to provide the opportunity and prosperity that we really all seek?
All right, Senator, we appreciate you coming on. Thank